Did you not know the topic of my talk? What are you doing putting me in this situation? What a fucking stitch up. Cool. So I made this talk about 4 months ago after a lot of encouragement from two of my colleagues, Coronel, aka Cornier, and Christy, also aka K-Dog. Because I don't like public speaking. But, you know, I have obviously gone down a journey of career change, so I kind of have been both researching a lot of stuff myself to manage my perception of myself, career change, and all the rest, also with a lot of professional help too. So it's not just like research. I fully support. My therapists are amazing. So anyway, this kind of all comes together with like both my opinions, both some like real helpful advice. By the way, don't blame me if you follow my advice and shit goes wrong, you know, like this is disclaimer, please. I did this 4 months ago to 10 people. I freaked the fuck out. And you know, like, do you remember those like lollies that you had where you dip the lolly in the bag and you put it in your mouth and it's fucking like on fire? Yeah, the tingly thing. That's panic for me. So right now, this is a mess. My knees are shaking. Anyway, just want to let's paint the picture of where I'm at. Anyway, that was overwhelming. But then you guys did this to me. So cool. Thanks for voting for me though, actually. Sweet. So to get into it, we sent around a survey internally at Telstra Purple to ask if we felt like we were surrounded by thought leaders. And then if you felt like you were a thought leader. And so obviously 62% said that they thought that they were surrounded by thought leaders. So, you know, we obviously respect our peers. We think they're freaking amazing. Like they're super smart. They are, but they are so fucking smart. I contributed to that, yes. And I also absolutely contributed to that 80% no. Do I feel like a thought leader? Hell no. What am I doing here? I don't know, what I get from that is that obviously we have a lot of people internally at Telstra Purple who feel like they have imposter syndrome, but you all voted for me, so maybe you do too. And I hope something I say resonates and helps a little bit, because maybe you voted for me because you want answers, but I don't know if I can give them to you, but we'll try. I want to say, first of all, what you'll get from me for the next X amount of minutes, I didn't time the talk. This is going to be the second time I do it since 4 months ago, and I've added some slides, so X amount of minutes. I promise it won't be overtime. It's probably going to fall short. We'll drink beer ASAP. But that QR code is going to take you to a Spotify playlist that I put together of some of the most influential podcasts that I listen to and that really helped me on my journey of understanding imposter syndrome. Also, there are some bangers in there, so it's a good listen. And if at any point you're tuning out from what I'm saying and nothing's resonating, or you're like, I heard it, just put your headphones in and listen to that. But what you're going to get from me is my definition of imposter syndrome, when and why it strikes for me and maybe for you. Reframing imposter syndrome thinking patterns. I don't want to call it imposter syndrome. I am not that thing. I have thinking patterns that are like that. Probably a bunch of stuff you've heard before. Biggest fear of talking in front of people is not being original. So just going to call that out. You're probably going to hear a lot of stuff you've heard before. And then probably a lot of things about me. So who the hell am I? I'm going to make, is that word? Let's get rid of that. All right. So, hi, my name's Jess, and I am an imposter, but some people think that I'm a great designer. I never had imposter syndrome before. I started my career in advertising, and I thought I was a baller. I was doing really well. I felt super successful. I was traveling. I was working on some of the coolest projects I could have wanted to work on. I was so satisfied. I was winning some of the best awards in the industry. It was just like cool stuff, right? Things that I measured my self-worth by. But I kind of didn't like the creative process. I was so scared of it because I never knew where my next idea was going to come from. And I got really burnt out by that. I was working super long hours, wasn't sustainable. And through all of that, I kind of just turned my back on advertising. I was an art director in advertising. I don't think I mentioned that. But it was really cool until it wasn't. So I went through a career change. It took me ages to figure out what to do next. And that lull was absolutely awful. Like, what do I do now if I don't do what I know? And that is where the imposter syndrome really came from, because I thought, like, well, if I don't know what to do next, and that's all I knew, maybe I'm not good at anything. Maybe I have no skills to take me forward. And then what? So it took me about 3 years of just doing, so I think I touched the mic, sorry. It took me about 3 years to kind of like figure out some other stuff. I moved out of advertising. I thought it was like the devil's work. Maybe it is, maybe I was that. But then I moved into filmmaking. I was like, maybe I just want to tell some really cool stories, but with a really nice message. Like, that's a similar vibe, right? Like, visual storytelling. But there's a reason I didn't want to do that. I just can't command a set. I don't want to talk in front of people. But anyway, so I found UX design. I was like, this is the thing for me. There's process. There's some steps to take. I can follow that. I can work through all of my imposter syndrome feels, because there's a process. If I don't know what to do next, I just like, look at the rule book, man, do that one. Cool, so I went back and had big first day energy. This is my first day at Telstra Purple, getting my new M1, and God, I feel like an absolute, how am I smiling there? You don't understand the anxiety and stress I felt that day. That was friggin' awful, but anyway, there I am smiling, like now. But there is a lot of reasons why imposter syndrome can strike, right? For me, it was career change, but it could be anything. I'm a consultant, so for me, now at least, it's a new gig, a new client, maybe getting that promotion. I'm like, I fooled you all again. And then, a new job. New tech is changing around us all the time. Like, it's so hard to keep up. And it could be anything, not just tech, but like any new environment, right? And essentially, the whole point being anything new, anything we don't fully understand. Is anyone brave enough to talk about something recently that has caused them a lot of stress and anxiety and those feelings of imposter syndrome? Front row. Go, Tom. Yeah, but they thought you were good enough, right? Yeah, we try hard to believe them. For me, this was my journey to getting my job at Telstra Purple. I saw the job ad in like April, and I was like, there's no way I am good enough to apply for that job. And then I let it go until September, and there was still a job ad. And then, fuck. All right, maybe I'll apply for it. But the only reason I did, let's be real, I saw a video that Christy, wherever she is, posted a video about shame, and I knew that she would be my people leader, and I was like, wow, that is such an empathetic and understanding, lovely thing for a people leader or potentially my boss to talk about. I carry so much shame. Cool. Maybe she'll get it. I'll apply for the job. So I applied for the job. I think within like the 10-day process, it was like first interview, second interview, final interview, and then I had it, and I felt like I didn't really talk much. They were selling me this job. I'm like, cool, they don't care what I have to say. Like, this is just, everyone's just doing me a favor. They're placating me. That's lovely. We don't want to know more about what you think. So anyway, I waited. The interview was on Friday. They told me they moved fast. Monday passed. I heard nothing. And then I remembered, that's right, I'm not good enough. So I completely prepared a concession speech, and I spoke about it to a couple of my colleagues, and I was like, this is what I'm going to say. Cool, I want to be graceful when I fail, you know? And then I also convinced myself after that I didn't even want the job anyway. That's fine, I don't want it. It's easy. And then I got a call from Sasha, and I was at my old job, ran out onto the street. I'm like, hi. She's like, I just want to let you know that I want to offer you the job. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. Yeah, I'll take it. Like, it was so dorky. I didn't prepare a speech to accept the job. I was like, I had a concession speech prepared. And then I accepted it without even hearing any of the terms and conditions. I was like, yeah, I'll take it. It's great. And I realized what I paced, just fucking paced. And I eventually had to apologize to you. And Sasha was like, I'm sorry, I'm so dorky right now. This is embarrassing for me. Yes, of course, thank you. And she's like, you know what? If you weren't enthusiastic, we'd think maybe you didn't want the job. I'm like, no, I want that job. Anyway, so I immediately accepted it. And then after all of that, I told everyone that they were fools and that they didn't know me. Like, what? It's just, how arrogant, right? Like, these people and their absolute critical thinking and their interview process, like, after all of that, I'm like, you're still idiots. You don't know me. I am a fraud. And there is the paradox of imposter syndrome. So, me, I'm thinking, I'm shit. And then I'm thinking, these people are brilliant. And they're thinking, you're brilliant. And I'm still like, but you're wrong. And even though I think you're smarter than me, I still think I know more than you. Like, what? Huh? It just doesn't make sense, right? So maybe if we doubt ourselves and our judgment, maybe we should also kind of start believing in other people and doubt our judgment of ourselves. So, I can't remember the link to this slide. Maybe it's just a cry for help. But I always feel stupid. Show of hands, does anyone else feel stupid? Oh, I love this. Oh my God, what's your name? You're like, nah. Let's talk later. Cool. But so I gave this talk, like I said, 4 months ago. And at the very end, one of our principal consultants, like one of the fucking smartest dudes, right, said this after my talk. He was like, yeah, I actually always feel really stupid. I'm like, dude, you are so smart. You don't get it. But it made me feel so comfortable. And so I kind of like that these conversations can make people who are so senior to you say things like that. And it's so grounding and comforting. So thanks, extremely smart dude. But I guess imposter syndrome is, we can categorize it as a shapeshifter, right? Like it's always changing. You get over it and you're cool. I don't feel insecure anymore. And then the next day you're like, oh my God, damn, I am a hack. Like I really am a hack. That other day where I felt good, ignore that. But I found this little flow diagram and felt like it really resonated for me. So the hedonic treadmill is like, for me, you find something that you want. Maybe it's that promotion. Maybe it's an award, which, my old life, advertising life, like we chased awards. That was like how we determined our worth. But maybe now it's just more like there's new tech. It's all the time, right? Like so much new tech. How the hell do we keep up? But we want that thing. We want that knowledge. So we strive for it. We run there. We get it, whatever means possible. We try and find out the answers to that. And then we get it. And I'm like, cool, I feel good about myself. Nice. And then that satisfaction kind of slips away because we can't hold satisfaction for very long. We're human. And it also because we've raised our benchmark. That's become the new normal. And then we're back at some new problem, new tech, new award. Oh, I got bronze, I want gold. What is it? Where do we stop? So looking at this I decided that I wanted to slow down. And slowing down, being more kind to myself, being more patient. I don't chase awards anymore. I don't want that. I don't want a promotion until I'm tapped on the shoulder and said, do it. And I want to walk into it. I don't want to run. I don't want to try. That's stressful, right? Then we get burnt out. Unless I'm walking into that, I'm cool with not having it. Let's move at a comfortable pace. Let's reduce stress. And also, it gets harder the more we, I guess, get older. I don't know. But it gets harder because the more we achieve, the higher our benchmarks get. We get better. We get better. It gets harder to get better. How good can we get? I don't know. So, slow down. Enjoy the journey. That's my takeaway from it. And I am now 32. At 31, I got my first job in my new career change. I feel old AF. To be doing having first day energy is that's rough. It's not that old. And apologies to anyone else who's older, but it just for a career change, that felt like I was there's some of my colleagues so incredibly smart. They're so talented. I'm so much older than you. But hey, that's me going comparing myself to people. So fuck that. Anyway, if it's always a shapeshifter, how do we define it, right? If it's always changing, what sense can we make of this feeling? Adam Grant, and he is the dude that I am plagiarizing big time throughout all of this thing. I'm going to give him credit here because this is something that really stuck with me. Imposter syndrome is the gap between what people think I can do and what I believe I can do. Or maybe even imposter syndrome is the gap between what I think people can think, what I think people think I can do, and what I believe I can do. Why this worked for me is because I'm a visual thinker. So being able to visualize this gap, cool, it's just a gap, right? So how do I close that gap? What needs to go in the middle there to join the dots and get me to the next place? So I kind of figured out some other ways to close the gap. These were my quick fixes. I could upskill. I could take a course. I could read a blog. Simple enough, more time consuming, more challenging, potentially, financial investment. So there's something to think about there. But you see, there's some things we need to consider before we dive into actually upskilling. Easier one, set expectations. I hope I set your expectations at the beginning of this talk. And the other one being expose your gaps. This one, small caveats. Sometimes I expose my gaps way too much and I just constantly excuse myself. Oh, sorry, that's meant to be like this. Oh, sorry, that should be like this. Oh, sorry, I'm not. The feedback I'm getting is stop doing that. But you can still expose your gaps. These are my weaknesses, these are my strengths. And so when I'm on, if someone's going to put me on a new gig where this is going to require a certain skill set, and I can say, cool, that's not a strength of mine. I'm going to need more time to develop and to work through that problem. And as long as I have the right team and the right support, that's okay. They're going to support me when those moments occur. So it's fine, but it absolutely requires vulnerability. You've got to be so brave to be vulnerable. It's not easy. Everyone talks about vulnerability now, so do it. But it really depends on the people that we surround ourselves with. And I'm really fortunate that I have that. So it's easy for me to write this talk because I feel safe. But what is the gap? What actually is it? And how do we feel in the gap? And then what stands in the way of us closing this gap? I want to kind of explore these. Tell me to move that cursor. So I want to explore what these are. So who has heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect? Show of hands. Cool. Nothing new here, right? I promised you wouldn't learn anything new. Setting expectations. But the graph on the left, who knows the graph on the left? Show of hands. And who understands or who's seen the graph on the right? Cool, a few more, right? So the Dunning-Kruger effect was obviously developed by these guys, Dunning and Kruger, who ran an experiment, and that's actually the real visualization of the data that they produced. The one on the right is slightly different. So the one on the right is a little bit more about confidence rather than the statistical output of the experiment that they ran. So what they did is they asked people to sit a test. I think it was like just a basic test of logic and reasoning, literature, that kind of stuff. And then they got people to, after they sit the test, rate how they felt they went. And you can see that the people who performed pretty poorly thought they did pretty good. And those who actually excelled didn't think they did as good as they thought, right? So, went better than they thought they went. So we can kind of see here, for me, I was like, maybe that's the gap, right? And the gap that's the gap that I want to close. We want to try and align where we think we are with what we can do. But if we move over to the right at this graph, which is the more common Dunning-Kruger effect visualization, this is more of a visualization of confidence over knowledge rather than our actual ability versus our perceived ability. So obviously, as we learn something new, and we're like, I am a genius. And we're so excited, and we get to this peak confidence. The real graph, I think, actually calls it Mount Stupid. And you're all so mean. I think it's really mean, right? Like, Mount Stupid implies that I'm stupid, and stupidity implies that we don't have the capacity to learn, but we all do. So it's just peak confidence. That's just where I'm at in my journey of learning something. And if we do persist a little bit longer and we keep learning, maybe put it into practice, we're here, right? And like, oh yeah, I don't know anything about this topic. I really thought I did, and now I am hating myself, I'm doubting myself, and usually we kind of give up at this point. But if we persist, we can go on this slope of enlightenment, and that's kind of a good feeling. It's slow, it's enduring, and it requires persistence, but we're never really going to hit that blissful peak of confidence, right? And there's just, I don't really know how to describe this line that I've put here. I've put an arrow to it saying humility. I feel like that's where our humility keeps us, to be like, cool, I know now, I've learned that lesson, that there's always more to learn. So, even that graph is wrong. This is my revisement. There are many peaks of confidence and numerous valleys of despair, daily, monthly, weekly, whatever you want to do it, maybe hourly, who knows. But this was my journey. My very first gig at Telstra Purple, nailed it. Was like, yeah, I have learned everything. They believe in me. I'm going to do a really good job. And then I submitted a claim, an insurance claim, and it wasn't in the test environment. And I used the client's real details, and he had to like go through this whole process of being like, can you not ruin my credit rating or whatever you call it in insurance? So look, there was a moment, and I was like, that is a big low for me. Like, first gig, damn. But then we ended the gig, and it was such a cool output. I'm looking at you. I'm like, was it? But we felt really, good about it. Like, it was really cool output. So then I went to my next gig feeling awesome. I'm like, cool. My first gig done. I got this. I know what I'm doing now, right? And then someone said to me, the GDT runs with the CSRI, but not if the KLM2 has an RBM status. I'm like, sorry, can you repeat the question? Damn. But it's not always like that. It's not always that big. Sometimes I watch a Figma tutorial. I'm like, yeah, cool, auto layouts, they're my thing now, guys, just ask me. Or components, all the rest. And then you're sitting at home alone, working at home. And you're like, oh, fuck, I'm dirty. Detach. It's like, God damn it. Oh, I'm right back down there. So, anyway, I'm glad you laugh because I feel like maybe you do it too. So that when we're in these like valleys of despair, right, this is what people say to you. Oh, just believe in yourself, you're doing great. Tell that little voice to shut up. And you're like, yeah, cool, bro. Thanks for the encouragement, but like my gut's telling me something else. And you know what? Maybe your insecurities and doubts are just your gut. They're actually is telling you something, right? Like you need to, let's tune into that voice. Let's not ignore it. Maybe it's really telling us something. So this is the slide that I made about 20 minutes ago. But this is what's worked for me. And I mean, I don't do this amazingly, but I'm trying to really channel it. It's like I start every gig or something new saying, oh God, I don't know anything about this topic. But I want to listen. I would like challenge us to actually listen to that doubtful voice, right? Identify what you don't know and then just turn it into a question. And then boom, there's your discovery plan. Like, cool, no more blank page. I've turned all of these doubts, this like critical thinking, like harsh critical thoughts about myself. And now I know what to do next. Sweet, cool, thanks, negative gut. But, you know, it works. So when we're in these like valleys of despair, right, we're really playing with our uncertainty tolerance. And what is our uncertainty tolerance? So Monash University, a little QR code there, it might be too small, I'm sorry. But they did a study on the effect of uncertainty tolerance in the health, or during COVID, and the effect of that on healthcare workers. And this little diagram came from that study. And what they worked out was like, if you have a tolerance of uncertainty, our decisiveness and our decision making is a lot better and a lot faster. But it's because we understand that there is no one way of doing something. We understand there are so many different ways to realize a solution or to get to where we need to go. And so we kind of have this cognitive flexibility, and we're kind of more empathic, we're nicer, right? But if we are really, really struggling with our uncertainty tolerance, it might present with anxiety and depression and burnout, right? Like when you're panicking and it's enduring panic and it goes for ages, we're so uncertain, we're freaking out, like that's when we start to burn out and we start to become really indecisive. But I think, well, these guys telling me, but it's this belief in singularity. Like there is one way to do something, and if I don't find that one way to do it, I'm doing it wrong. And therefore all of my ideas are terrible, I'm a failure, I can't find that one right way of doing it. And that to me is perfectionism. And that's where I needed to revise my journey, because I used to kind of describe myself as a perfectionist. Like, don't worry, yeah, my strength, perfectionism. Like, shut up. But when I did this career change, someone sent this gift, this meme to me after for 2 years, I have been telling everyone my new goals in life. My new goal was to strive for mediocrity. And it worked, right? It really worked for me. I was like, you just need to stop trying to be perfect. Strive for mediocrity. Be okay at stuff. And it didn't mean really that my skills got worse, and I don't recommend lowering your benchmark. But it worked in a way that my self-talk became a lot kinder to myself. And I was okay with things being okay. If I had to show someone something that wasn't perfect, that was okay too, you know? Like, so anyway, this guy, mediocrity, is my savior. But don't do it, don't do that, do this. Let's think about what perfectionism actually is. So this is, again, this is my definition, things that I've gleaned from, a millennial using the internet. I have a deficit style of thinking when I am a perfectionist, and that I myself am fundamentally flawed. Every piece of feedback is an indictment on myself. And feedback is the absolute villain to my character. I want to avoid it. I don't want feedback. Like, that is going to hurt way too much, because I I'm a perfectionist. I'm perfect, right? Like, it's so harsh. It's so hard. So I changed. I wanted to, follow that QR code at the beginning, Adam Grant, there's a QR code at the end, so just like scan it. But the things that he taught me was to really reframe the way I thought into being a learner. And I want to have this pursuit of mastery instead of having this deficit style of thinking like, oh, there's a thing, oh God, I don't know it. Instead, now I'm like, I want to know that thing. Let's learn it. And instead of thinking that I am fundamentally flawed, I kind of recognized that the problem was maybe the process or the technique or how I used it. But those things can be worked on, right? Like that's easy. Maybe hard, but it's not me. It's what I did with it or what it is. And then feedback, I seek feedback now all the time. And the more frequent that I ask for it, it's like daily, maybe even after every meeting. Sorry who I work with, but it's there to guide me, right? I always want to get better. I'm learning. But if you can't help but be a perfectionist, if none of this is resonating with you, and you're like, yeah, but I'm still a perfectionist, then perfect failing, because failing is a sign of knowing that we have extended ourselves. If we're not failing, then like, have we really tried? Have we pushed ourselves? I don't know. Maybe you have, and you're like, I just like nailed it. So what's failure? But perfecting failing to me is building it into your workflow and managing how we deal with it. I'm just looking at Harry on the floor. He said he was going to take pictures. I'm like, do we want one now? Anyway. So yeah, perfect failing. And this is my spicy take. If you're not uncomfortable asking for feedback, then you're probably just asking for a compliment, right? Like we've all heard, share your work early. If you're not uncomfortable sharing your work, then you're sharing it too late. And it's probably saying the same thing, and I'm all for compliments. Like, after this, please give me compliments. But it's okay. Maybe you've had a shitty day. You need people just to be complimentary. You can ask for that. Maybe you need to know what you're doing right, so keep doing it. Go down that pathway. Keep going. On cue. Thanks, Harry. Cool, but asking for feedback really requires a culture of psychological safety. Also, I'm really sorry about the gaudy. Oh, it's more gaudy here. I decided on these colors like 4 months ago, and then like between the last break, I started to smash together some slides and realizing the bright orange ones might be a bit much. But requires a lot of psychological safety to be vulnerable enough to ask for feedback. And that can be really hard. But then we need to ask the question, what is feedback? And what is not feedback? Feedback is guidance. Feedback is things that I can take away and become better. Feedback is from people who care about your professional development as much as they care about the project you're working on. Because they go hand in hand, right? Like if you're better, the project is going to be better. But when you hear feedback that feels more like criticism, that's not very good. Oh, you kind of failed. We're over time, or over budget. You messed up. We need to do better next time. Like, don't be gaslit. That's criticism. It's kind of feedback, but like, let's reframe that. It's criticism. Feedback is people who are invested in your professional development, and they help you help the project. So how do we seek feedback? I've fortunately been in a situation where I can now understand the way I like to receive feedback. And so my style, and I try and communicate that with the people that I work with, I ask for clarity and candor. My anxiety and my insecurities are too high. Like, I don't really want you to sugarcoat it. Be like, this is what's not working, but you can do this to make it better. I'm like, cool, received, got it, nice. I also check in after every single workshop. or presentation or a user test, whoever's in the room with me, hang up the call, work from home a lot, so hang up the call, immediately call the other person who's on the line. I'm like, what'd you think? And they're like, yeah, cool. I'm like, and? Outlook has already made this possible for us. Try and schedule an hour meeting, they make it 50. You're like, God damn it, it's annoying. Nah, that 10 minutes, that's feedback time. Use it. And I only really ask people's opinion who I value. I value a lot of people's opinions, so I'm really fortunate again, but their opinion might matter, but I only also really ask people who I trust to deliver that feedback in a way that works for me. Because I might value someone's opinion, but they might deliver it in a way that sounds like criticism. I'm not prepared for that. I'm sensitive, hence talk. We're wrapping up, lovely. So ultimately, I want to try and reframe how I think of uncertainty. So if we rethink uncertainty, right? Feeling uncertain is the precursor to growth. I don't know if you're like into affirmations and shit, but like, I feel like that's something you write on your bathroom mirror when you get like getting ready to go to work. But I have more, so save some space. Let's rethink confidence too. Confidence, it's not just being like super, like the highest form of self-confidence is believing in your ability to learn. Like, you can have low moments of confidence, I don't get it, but believing that you will, that's real confidence. So now let's rethink imposter syndrome. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but it's only a matter of time until I figure it out. So, is imposter syndrome for imposters? I don't know, maybe, like trust your gut a bit, but use it, right? For me, I'm more curious. I'm motivated. I work so fucking hard when I feel insecure and like I'm not doing a good job. I'll hide that from everyone, but I work really hard. I also keep keep learning. I want to keep learning. And ultimately, I'm kind of become a nicer person through it. I'm more humble. I'm empathetic. So I want to reintroduce myself. Hi, my name's Jess. And I'm a badass designer, and I'm dedicated to a lifetime of learning cool shit.